Hey, and welcome to another episode of Creative Leaders Unplugged. I'm Morgan with Arna, and today we're talking with John Bielenberg. So John is, yeah, a
Yeah, John
designer.
is a designer. He's a creative leader. He's an example. He's someone who who does. He's very proactive. He does the things that he feels are right. But he's also like very. He can also be really down to earth. So in the sense of, he gives you good advice, but he's not. He does know that, there's a reality. You have to kind of, things like, you have a
Hmm.
mortgage, you have to kind of do the things you
Yeah.
can't, so this, to me, it's always been such an example. I seriously, it's something I think about all the time when working, and with clients is, what is this something, am I contributing to do the right thing here? Is it?
Hmm.
And I think I do it because I like working with people and helping people to see things differently and help them to be more creative and have more empathy and humanize systems. And I say these things and I believe in them, but sometimes you go like, am I really? Is this really what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
really, your last project, was that really what you were doing, or were you just getting paid basically? And
Yeah. Yeah.
right, because I have a mortgage, I have children, I need to make a living. So the complexity of it, but then again, I mean, so John is someone, just like his anecdote of, he found himself in a bank or working for banks and working in
Hmm.
the financial sector, and then with a suit on and a suit and tie with, a bunch of other guys with suits and ties, and then thinking, I don't belong here. I
These
don't
are not my
want,
people.
these are not
Yeah.
my people. This is not my place. I don't want to be here. And I've had that. I don't know. Have you ever experienced a moment like that where you went,
Definitely. Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
tell me
So,
more of
um, well, it was more just this feeling, not so much of a vivid, oh, I'm wearing a suit and tie and it's some shiny skyscraper with a bunch of finance gurus, but more just this feeling like this is not the type of atmosphere or energy that I want to continue to work in. And so yeah, and it was more like we would have internal things that you could volunteer for. So it wouldn't be so big as taking on my own client, but just within the university where I work, of course, there's different committees and boards and stuff to get things done.
that?
Um, and so and some of them are, of course, you have smaller teams, which I much prefer to work in because you can, connect and work with people. But then when it comes to much, much bigger teams, especially within the whole university, it just has to operate in a bit, much more systemic and kind of procedural way. And that's just not my type of environment. I can understand the value in that. But I was like, yeah, okay. I know that my place where I can be my best version of myself is not in this type of um, arena, where everybody's reading the minutes and following along and raising their hands at the right times. And so I'm gonna find myself in a workshop with post-it notes or,
Yeah,
making prototypes or something. So
but it's important. I mean, the only way to find out is
to try
by
it.
being being there and
Yeah,
then try.
absolutely.
Because otherwise, you might
Absolutely.
think that that would have been great, but you just never experienced that. I think a lot of people go through this where especially, I recently talked to someone, and this is a story I've heard over and over by multiple people who sort of climbed the corporate ladder,
Hmm.
where they found themselves, they became people managers in the company, et cetera, and they found themselves all of a sudden disconnected from the doing part, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and 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 the more you climb the ladder, the more it becomes political, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then some people really become really unhappy because they didn't realize that, because that was the thing you should do. You're supposed
Hmm.
to do that. You're supposed to climb corporate ladder, and then all of a sudden you find yourself,
Yeah.
Why do I? Because now I kind of not do. I'm not doing the thing I actually love. So designers, for instance, if you're a designer, if you're creative, realize that if you start climbing that corporate ladder, because somehow you're in an environment where that is, the thing to do, and you get the opportunity, you think, yeah, that's awesome because it makes you feel good, and
Hmm.
because
Promotion,
it's promotion, right?
recognition.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, and
Yeah.
and so you do it, but maybe for the wrong reasons, but you'll find out later, because
And
you
maybe
might
not
get,
even for, yeah. And maybe not even for the wrong reasons, but just, hey, okay, I just do it. And then you realize this is not my space.
yeah, yeah,
And that's
exactly,
also, and I think that's okay. And I think that we should make that
yeah.
um more acceptable. Be like, hey,
Yeah,
okay,
but
I tried it.
the way back
Yeah,
is really difficult.
exactly.
So that's what you need to make more acceptable, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Like, okay, I tried it, not my thing. Let me step
yeah.
down, step to the side, step in a different direction than only this path. And that's what I
That's
really
really
loved.
difficult, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. 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 No, and I mean, I talk about my dad a lot, but I love him, so it works. But, um, but he had the same experience, got a manager role and was like, I really love working and doing the projects and stuff, and so also took a step down, and that was also tough for him,
Yeah.
because as the society, as a you know culture, we don't really make that. We don't celebrate making decisions that are always best for
No,
you, even
exactly.
if they
Yeah.
look different. Yeah.
Yeah, so this idea of um, actually not sort of it's sort of growing as an individual, growing as a
Hmm.
professional, doesn't mean you have to kind of go up the ladder. You can also grow sideways,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah,
You don't need so, but we don't have that kind of culture in many organizations,
definitely.
right? And I think that is yeah, and once you get up that ladder, usually the combination is also that you get more money,
Hmm.
and you get into what we tend to call the golden cage.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
because you start living that way, and you start, you might buy another house or something, or you start getting used to that, it's really difficult to then step back.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think it is, it's really important to realize that if that the consequences of these kind of decisions,
Hmm.
and there are people who are great people managers, and they love that, and that's what they do, and they really are okay with letting go, and but otherwise you become this micromanager that still wants to kind of control everything and be part of the doing bit, and
Hmm.
so I don't know. It's a fascinating. So, what is your place? Where are you happy?
Yeah.
Do you know? All right, but you have to try out different things. But allow yourself to try out different things, but don't get stuck. I think that's really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. And that's what I really loved about the conversation with John, is that he takes such ownership, for himself. He shared a story from university very early on. They told him to make a crucial decision. And he did. He took ownership, and he made the decision that was best for him. And you mentioned that you were working with another company, and he was like, I would never work with that company.
Yeah, exactly.
And so just taking that ownership.
Yeah, I
And I
want to
think,
work for Coca-Cola. Yeah, it was Coca-Cola. I never worked for Coca-Cola. Like, oh,
and I think
so
that's so empowering, right? Like realizing we don't always have to do what's
exactly.
expected or popular or
Exactly. And yeah, that's such a powerful example for me. Where I go, you can make those choices. You can make those choices and get
Mhm.
away with them. You can.
Yeah.
Yes. You
Yeah.
know, there's another path. There's another way of doing it. And yeah, exactly. So,
And that's usually where the most interesting things are happening. So,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. So listen to John Bielenberg and enjoy.
I'm a wrong thinker. I believe in value of breaking neural pathways in service of new ideas. I think that's essential at this point in history. Um, I think I'm a creative person. I like to make things in various forms. I'm a recovering designer. I spent a great part of my career working with large corporations, greasing the wheels of capitalism, and I'm sort of over that now. I'm applying most of my energy to sustainability programs and climate, change.
Mm.
I think that's one of the most important things we could possibly work on at this point.
Mhm.
Um, I live on the coast of Maine. I'm a avid cyclist. We have these bikes that kind of come apart so you can put them in a box that goes on the plane without extra charge. So we take them all over the world with us. It's a great way to see a new place. If you're in a car, that's one thing. If you're walking, you can't go very far, but on a bike, you can really explore, and
Mm.
kind of experience a place in a new way.
Are you from New England?
No, well, upstate New York.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad was a theater professor. Grew up in upstate New York, but went to California right after I graduated from college. So I spent most of my career on the West Coast in San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
Moved to Maine just to get out of the rat race. I have two kids and just wanted to raise them in a smaller town, just with less stress and pressure.
Yeah.
It worked out, but I had to commute back and forth to California for 20 years, which
Oh
almost,
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
was
intense.
brutal. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't recommend it. I don't think I would have moved all the way across the country if I knew I was going to do that for decades.
Yeah. Have you heard there's the Baz Luhrmann speech about sunscreen. And it
Hmm.
says everyone should live in New York, but leave before it makes you hard. And everyone should live in California, but leave before it makes you soft.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I think yeah, that's one of the biggest, people ask me what it's like to live in America. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are always surprised about is how big of a difference there is between different, we're all one country, but it's so different state to state. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's also because of, in a way, as a European, because of the languages and the cultural differences. I mean, in Europe, that there's such a diversity of it, right? And I mean,
mhm.
not just accents, but I mean, even in this tiny little country, we have two official languages in the Netherlands, right? And in the US, everybody kind of, from there's differences in accent, obviously, right? From Texas and New York, but still, it's all English. And, kind of you can get throughout the whole country, you can get away with just speaking English.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas in Europe, I take my car. It's like 2 hours, and I'm in Germany, and they don't really speak Dutch, right? And so I think it's so it does kind of seem like it's sort of one, big kind of one culture for outsiders. Although, I mean, obviously, if you think about it a little bit, but I think for you, because I've been in the US, but I don't know the how strong the cultural differences are actually. Just accent. I know I can hear someone from Texas, I think. But like, what if if there's a real difference in culture? I don't.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I'm assuming based on television programs and CNN. All I know.
Both are sometimes accurate.
Yeah, I guess so. But
Sometimes.
but typically the other way around is also for Americans going to Europe, and then they go to Paris, and they might go to maybe London, and maybe Barcelona, and then or maybe Rome or something, and then they've seen Europe.
Yeah.
So
That's why I was curious about if are you from New England? Because, Maine is so beautiful. And so, we only traveled as a family up there, but I don't know, it just feels very rich in everything. Like the communities are very, like they're smaller, but they seem to be quite, yeah, solid communities, and the history and the nature and
Yeah, yeah. We looked all over the country. We moved to Boulder, Colorado first. And I had an office in Boulder and one in San Francisco, and it was almost too easy to fly back and forth. So I was
Yeah.
always, and we picked Maine because it seemed like it hadn't been ruined yet. It's kind of isolated up near Canada. It once had a rich economy with clipper ships and boat building, and now it's mostly tourism and
Okay.
lobster. But it hadn't really changed too much. COVID really impacted the coastal communities because a lot of people were moving in, homes doubled or tripled in value. So it's
Wow.
changing now more than we saw in the past.
Hmm.
Uh, it was in, all of these places, they used to be inexpensive in Colorado, like Boulder, for example,
Yeah.
or Bend, Oregon, or Boise, Idaho. Were all cheap college towns, and it's completely changed now because people can move to where they want to live, and
Yeah.
work at Google or something. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's different now.
It's really accelerated. And you mentioned, and one of the other things you mentioned was that you're a wrong thinker. And I really like that terminology. Have you always been a wrong thinker?
Yeah, when did that start? Good
I
question.
think so, although I wasn't really aware of it too much. It came out mostly in college, where I was going to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, in communication design, it was called. And I started to really question the assignments, and I would do them, but in a way that was completely different than what the instructor expected. But I would technically do it, but I knew that it was completely wrong. And there was one assignment where we were supposed to render in black and white this silver goblet or something. And what they were trying to get us to master the skill of rendering that with light and shadow and everything and do a big
Mm.
poster. I was like, forget it. I'm not doing that. It had zero interest to me. And I knew everyone else was doing it. So I did this poster with the signature of this silversmith, Sanderson, and it was kind of going up diagonally with this little block of Helvetica in the corner. And we did a crit, and the instructor came around. And when he got to mine, the class gave it a standing ovation because I had broken the rules, and it was pretty cool looking, kind of in a modernist Swiss design way. And then I was called into the dean's office and told to
Oh.
shape up or ship out, they said.
And
Oh,
so what did
So
you do?
I shipped out. I went to where my dad taught and finished up my college. Um, but I think that was the first time I was really pushing the boundaries and trying to break the rules.
is that something that I mean, what about your parents? Is that something you recognize from your parents or your father,
Yeah,
your mother?
that's a good question. My parents were because my dad was a theater professor and in the arts community in various universities, they encouraged creativity
Mm.
quite a bit, and didn't and allowed you to express that. It wasn't so much about the rules. And I remember we had these neighbors. He was a painter in the university program. He's a professor. And their house was bizarre. Like we had a nice modern, mid-century modern house, but theirs was this crazy industrial place with a painting studio on the bottom and a circular staircase in it. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, you don't have to live in a standard house.
Mm.
It's
Right.
those kind of things really made an impression on me. And I went to the World Exposition in Montreal in 1964, I think it was, which totally blew me away. There was a big Buckminster Fuller, the U.S. Pavilion, and just there was this housing project called Habitat by a guy named Moshe Safdie that you could tour that was made out of concrete. It's a very famous building. And I just remember as a 7-year-old just like being blown away. That, is what appealed to me, what was different, not what was conforming to the expected.
As a 7-year-old, I
Yeah.
mean, that's amazing, really. Even that you
Yeah.
remember, I mean, that you go like, oh, that's different. Because as a 7-year-old, how do you have that awareness as a
Yeah.
7-year-old?
I don't know. I don't know.
I can't even remember being 7, but I have to really think what blew me away. I don't know what blew me away. It's like, could have been anything really, but
Like,
that's really amazing.
Yeah.
That already, that sort of heightened sense of, hey, this is outside of the norm, or this is different. And somehow, but obviously, because you come from a family where that is encouraged, that it's about being creative, and being creative in a way. To me, if you're, I mean, you started calling it thinking wrong, but I mean, to me, that's just being creative, because
Mm.
creativity is about, can I change it? Can I connect it differently? Can I combine it in another way? Is that something that, I mean, from the, now you're 7, but what happened next? Were you always, I mean, has there been a moment where you were kind of more aware of that is something that you were doing, that you were like giving it a name? Because I'm pretty sure when you were 7, weren't thinking like, I'm thinking wrong.
No,
But it was that moment where you go like, yes, that's a thing. That's something I do. It's different than other people, right? It's
yeah.
not, I'm different. I'm thinking different. And that can really help people. I mean, when was that moment where you thought, yeah,
Yeah. I think, most of our education in the United States is teaching young people to conform,
yeah.
the right answer. This is how you do things. And, there's a famous story about this guy who goes into a kindergarten and says, how many of you are artists? And every kid raises their hands because they draw with crayons and stuff. By the end of high school, it's like one, the class artist. They've beaten it out of everybody
yeah,
else.
yeah, exactly.
Um, Maybe in the Netherlands, it's a little different. I think the
No,
culture is,
no, it's not. I'm sorry. No, yeah, people keep telling me they are always really disappointed because there's
uh,
this, the brand of the Netherlands is this thing. No, no, no. We have we have a similar system in that way. I must say, I mean, it might be, I mean, it might be different, but there's also a thing of, if you become a teenager, you become very self-aware and insecure, because all of a sudden you start thinking about, your social interaction, what other people think of you, and you start comparing yourself with others. And school doesn't really help you there either. It's not, school doesn't really care about that is actually going on with you while being at school, and you becoming this, this person that's really aware, and they don't really help you, give you that sense of security that you can be yourself, and you don't have to be the same as everyone else. It's difficult, obviously. I see it with my kids, at least.
mm,
I mean, my household, my wife's a designer. There's creativity all over the place, but still, I can tell my son, he's 12. He can still draw something and say, it's an elephant and it doesn't look like an elephant, but it's an elephant to him, so it's an elephant. He's already, now he's 12. It's changing a little bit, because he's like, now he's getting into that moment where he goes like, I don't think I can draw an elephant.
mm,
So can I have a picture of an
mm,
elephant, to kind of know
mm,
what an elephant looked like? But my daughter, she's 18, and she's already way past that point. She's like, I can't draw.
mm.
No, and I, to be sure, I mean, yes, it's school, yes, for sure. But it's also somehow, it's also human nature a little bit. So you need support, and school doesn't give you that support, but home can give you that support. But it's still, even then, it's kind of difficult to kind of, creativity. I think our society in general doesn't really appreciate wrong thinkers,
Yeah.
or creatives, or saying, I just go for it. I just try something. And and from school to work environments, it's just not appreciated, I think. So I'm
Yeah.
actually, as a parent, I'm a little bit baffled by it. I'm a bit like, what happened? Why? How come? Aren't we the parents your example of that it's okay? No, it's I don't know. It's
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, I hated high school probably for all those reasons.
Yeah, me too.
There's so much pressure to conform, to be a
Yeah.
cool kid or something. And I wasn't an outsider, but I just wanted to be done. And then when I got to college, it really changed because I was in design, and so I was with a lot of other people that thought like me. The program at RIT wasn't right for me because they were really strict,
Mhm.
grid system Helvetica program. But in general, that was where you can really flourish, because you're around similar-minded people. When you're speaking, I was thinking about an example of when I go, it's ironic. So I'll come at it from a different angle. It's ironic that the people that have achieved the most in general, and that can be business like Steve Jobs or something, art like Picasso, music, really anything, are the ones that are outside the norm, right?
Mhm.
They have the ability to think differently about something and then the wherewithal to actually get it done. And so it's really funny because when you're in situations, large organizations or corporations, there is this pathological um, conformity to what's expected,
Mm.
what's expected in that industry, or what they've done before. And so I always try to show that difference. Like, okay, let's talk about Steve Jobs. Let's talk about why, Apple was able to achieve the things they did when he was around. And so I try to get them to understand the value of pushing outside the boundaries, and doing something that's different. It's just funny to me because you can point to actual examples and metrics, and yet still there's some sort of human kind of um, characteristic that wants to conform.
Yeah, I think it's like a psychological, like a herd safety kind of mentality. And you mentioned that um, because of course you were kind of outside you would think in a different way. They said, shape up or ship out, and you were like, yeah, okay, no, I'm going to do my own thing, and took a different path. And then you were saying that you were working with then organizations and trying to show them the value. And how did you how do you uh, not justify, but how do you come to terms with those two different things? Because for me, like I'm okay, I can do my own thing. I can kind of march to the beat of my own drum. But then then to try to get other people on board with that is just a whole nother,
Yeah,
um, yeah,
yeah.
approach. So how do you, what is, yeah.
Well, sometimes it's impossible. I had this epiphany. I had a lot of clients in the financial world, most in New York City for a while for reasons I won't go into. And I was in this meeting. I think we were presenting an annual report back when design firms made those things. And we were waiting for the CEO to come in. And it was like, I don't know if it was Payne Weber or JP Morgan or someone like that. And we're in the boardroom, it's all guys. Everybody has a suit on, including me. And they're all talking about their bonus and what they buying sailboats and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, like, how did I get here? Like, these are not my people. And I made this vow to never do that again, never wear a suit to a meeting because ties are ridiculous. Like, they're just insane, to
And like
symbolize.
fancy leashes. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
insane. So I got rid of all those clients eventually and completely changed my path. It's really dependent on enlightened clients. I think it's extremely difficult to convince certain organizations, because the people you're working with, their bonuses are not based on, breaking the rules, they're on quarter to quarter
Yeah.
shareholder value or something. But we completely changed the company to this thinking wrong methodology. So we went from a design firm doing branding and identities and all that stuff to helping large organizations address their biggest challenges and using the thinking wrong methodology. So it's really this shift to acknowledging that I was more interested in things that were new and different and innovative, but I also felt like we live in this environment now the speed is increasing exponentially.
Mhm.
And, our impact on the natural world and all of that, that we can't just keep doing the same things and expect a positive outcome at this point.
Mhm.
And we had been kind of flat for thousands of years, and then all of a sudden, thanks to
Hmm.
this kind of thing, I mean, Moore's law about the speed of technology increasing exponentially, and now
Yeah.
we have AI, which is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, yeah, we will actually talk about that a little bit. I watched looked at your website and so a lot of AI going on. So
Yeah,
really
yeah.
interested. We would love to kind of hear your opinion or your thoughts about that. But I just got do one step back because when we got to know each other, I think you were still active. That was because I'm reading, because you're one of the few people I know with a Wikipedia page, by the way. So
Hmm.
like, you got a Wikipedia, but you're a really important person then. So you exist.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I didn't have.
Well, it happened. You're there. And it says 2003 that you created Project M. And I think when I got to know you, I think you were already doing that, obviously, because I think when I got to
Mhm.
know you, it's about 2008 or nine or so. So Project M was really interesting. I remember you telling stories, but because it is sort of something specific about the way you're thinking, and because you were doing sort of these kind of I remember you telling me a story about trying to revive the economy of a small town by giving I think it was a bakery,
Pi
uh,
Lab. Yeah.
yeah, Pie Lab, yeah, giving them a little incentive, a little bit of money, $50, I think, something like that, right? I thought it was such an interesting way of, not just because it's not just because it's a great idea, and the reason why, and the purpose of it is all really cool, but also you are someone who, and this is to me leadership and creative leadership. Nobody asks you to do things. Nobody says, John, can you do that? And then no, you go like you do it. You come up, and a lot of people find that really difficult to. They wait for someone to ask them to for a project for they wait for a client to tell them what to do. You're someone who says, no, well, this is interesting. I'm just going to develop something for this. And but anyway, Project M. Can you tell us a little bit about what that
Yeah,
is?
sure. So at the time I was teaching at the California College of the Arts in San Francisco, and they had this architecture lecture series, and this guy came in, Samuel Mockbee, I had never heard of him before, but he was an architect teaching at Auburn University in Alabama, and he had started this program for young architects called the Rural Studio. And he would take them 3 hours away from Auburn, which is a college town, to one of the poorest counties in America, Hale County, Alabama. And these young architects would have to interact with the community, figure out a project, design it, and build it themselves. And they've been going 30 years now and done hundreds of projects, houses, community centers, schools, fire stations. And I saw this guy present and I was like, why isn't there something like this for other design disciplines? Why just architecture? And so that was the spark for Project M, the M standing for Mockbee, the architect who inspired me, who had just passed away from leukemia. And so it was really an experiment where I would just take a group of young creative people in that period between college and getting jobs, plant them in an unfamiliar, usually distressed place. We've been all over the world now, and they have to invent a project, think wrong about how to do it, and get it done in a short period of time with limited resources. And I felt like this intense, like creative, challenging experience would have an outsized impact on the arc of their careers. Just like I believe the rural studio architects responded to that program. And then that was where I really developed the methodology for thinking wrong. How do you get your brain to break those neural pathways? How does that work? And then once you have a crazy idea, how do you get kind of the momentum and the wheels going?
Yeah. So
So
maybe
that's been going.
explain a little bit about, because it's intriguing where you said, well, and then we were, I told them to think wrong about it. Can you explain a little bit what, because I can imagine people listening go like, what exactly does it mean? Think wrong about it? What do you mean? Because I've been
Yeah,
in your one of your sessions, and so kind of I have a so I just told myself, wait a minute, I know what he's talking about, but maybe
right.
other people don't.
Yeah, at the beginning, when we did the book,
Hmm.
uh, it was a little more complicated, but we've now boiled it down to four different steps. And the reason is that I found that if you weren't heavily facilitated, most companies or individuals never would do it. It's
Mhm.
just like it's easier to just do the stuff you're already doing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so the four steps are, the first one is wait, why? So this is really questioning, wait, why do we have two cars? Wait, why do we live in the United States? So it can be an individual thing, or it could be a corporation. Wait, why are we still making that product, when blah, blah, blah. So it's really that questioning. Out of that, usually something interesting evolves. So you go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we doing that? And then the next step is called maybe. So this is where you develop a challenge statement. Maybe it's possible to sell our cars, and
Mhm.
live without that expense and impact on the planet. So that's the second step. Maybe it's possible too. The third is what if? And so this is really the creative part where you have to trick your brain into thinking wrong, because our brains are pathological about following. Once a neural pathway is in place, we just follow it, and it's really hard. And so there are various exercises we've developed. For example, maybe it's possible to get rid of, both our cars. And then the exercise, we take two random things that we put together, like um, outrageous pink flamingo, right? So your brain has no connection between getting rid of your cars and outrageous pink flamingo. But when you start there, you start with that prompt to generate ideas. Your brain can't go to a file folder full of everything, oh, maybe I could get an electric bike, so you're already in a file folder full of what you already know, but you
Mhm.
start with this crazy random prompt, and then you can't. And usually groups have trouble at the beginning,
Hmm.
because it's kind of hard to do that. But once they get going, it's much easier. Kids are actually really good at it.
Kids are
They're
so good
not
at this. Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
And then
those
the last
neural. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. The
Oh
last one.
yeah, they're just more flexible, and they're not all established or calcified at that point.
Yeah,
And
yeah, the
then
neural pathways are not there. Yeah, but so
right,
if you so no, sorry, I just wanted to say which
yeah,
because it makes so much sense in what you were saying earlier is that it's groups find it difficult because that's they haven't established those connections yet in their brain. So it also takes practice. They have to kind of the first time you might go, that pink flamingo. Why? Because your brain goes,
right.
why? That makes no sense. I'm not going there. I don't want to put it in. Your brain takes up so much energy. So it goes like, no, it resists, right? But after a while, you have to kind of practice. So that's so interesting. And kids, they don't have those blockages yet. They don't have those.
Yeah,
They're all kind of interconnected still up there. So they're going like,
right.
yay.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't care what the outcome is either, probably. And we go like, oh, but yeah, but I promised my boss that tomorrow we're going to have like 5 great ideas. And now this guy comes up and with his pink flamingos. And what, this is all going, so.
Right. And the way I explain it to in a more corporate situation, I say, okay, if you've got this challenge, you're trying to figure out a solution, wouldn't you rather have this huge range of possibilities to select from at the beginning?
Right.
And then you can always kind of bring those down.
Mhm.
But, you never go from a regular idea to an amazing idea later on, you know.
Yeah.
And so I try to like convince them of the value of a wide range of crazy ideas that you've never thought of. And then the last is called try this. And this is another way to think of it as small bets. So a lot of times there's fear, I'm going to get fired, or this will never work, or we're going to lose money or whatever. So
Mhm.
when you kind of make it into a small bet, let's just try this and see if it's working. And then you can build on that if it is, but there's less risk or loss, implied in that kind of approach. Um, so the example, Arne, that you talked about with Pi Lab, that started as a free pie day. So they just made pies, they had coffee and set up a table in this little community, and people came and they had conversations about what was going on that could then be made into projects in that community. And so that was the small bet that worked. We did a pop-up Pi Lab for the summer, and that was a big success. And then we built out the permanent Pi Lab. So it's sort of oh, this is interesting. How can we kind of build on this?
Mhm.
So those are the four
Yeah.
steps.
But, and that, I mean, so a couple of thoughts. One about Project M. The impact it has. So, for instance, you have PyLab that might become a successful business. It might have influence on a local economy. Sure. Then there's a group of young people that have went through that process. It will affect them in the way they think. I, on the other side of the ocean, am influenced by it because I still remember it as sort of an option because you've always been someone who I actually use a lot of the stuff that you do and the way you talk about things as an example of someone who gives you options. You go, oh, that's you can also do that. Oh, you can also go all the way there and just go and try that out, or you can behave that way, or you can choose sort of the companies you work for and not work
Mhm.
for instance. And I think that is such an important. I think lots of times people don't realize that the thing you do will affect something in the system more than
Mm.
you think. It might use your plant a seed and in people's heads basically, and that lives on. So even though it might seem very local and rural in this little town where there's pilot, but actually, these are stories that really influence a lot of people, which is I
Mhm.
think so powerful. um, that's why it's such a powerful thing to do. But also, your think wrong. One question I have about your think wrong is it getting easier to kind of explain it because of, or is it more difficult to get kind of uh, position it because design thinking, service design, and all these agile methodologies, all these creative methodologies that sort of sound for a lot of people the same.
Mhm.
And actually, in your Wikipedia page, it says that you're classified as an entrepreneur and a design thinker. So
I don't
what's
know
your
where that stuff comes from, but I'll take it.
someone
Secret
classified you.
Wikipedia elves typing in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just like the fact that you're classified as something. Sounds very official.
I think
So,
to answer the question about is it easier, I think Silicon Valley, that when I went to California, Silicon Valley hadn't really developed the way it did later on. But those, are some of the most valuable companies on the surface of the earth, the, Googles and Meta and Tesla and Apple, and so I think this idea of like move fast and break things or hacker, mentality. I think that has publicized the value of kind of, doing things differently.
Mhm.
In Apple's jargon, think different. There's a really great little video. It's on YouTube or something about Steve Jobs, and he's talking about creativity. And it's really short, but he says, all this stuff around us, the computer, the table, this chair, this house, was invented by people, he says, no smarter than you. And so he says that means that all of this is just the way it happens to be now, not the way it has to be or should be.
Mhm.
And so he's giving permission to rethink everything. There was a point in the early 2000s where I was being approached to be design director at Apple on the graphic side, not product side. And a good friend of mine was leaving that position to go to Pixar. And he would tell me stories about Steve Jobs. And he said every design decision had to go by him, even if it was the most ridiculous little thing. And he said one time he came in and he had a little white brochure that went in the box with the iPod. And it's just black, it's just documentation. Nobody, everyone throws it away, and he gives it to Steve. Steve looks at it, he goes, hands it back. Why is this on paper? And he's like, it has to be produced in three, factories all over the world for 0.03 cents. And Steve looks at him and goes, that's your limitation. That's not the limitation of the project. And so on the most simplest thing, he's constantly challenging, like, why? Wait, why is this on paper? Um, so I think, long story to get to the answer, I think it's easier now. And I think it's also because industries move so fast. You can't really stand in place and produce the
Mhm.
same thing forever. Um, and so there's more appetite. It doesn't mean it happens. So often when we would have big corporate clients, we would come up with some great ideas. I'll tell you one of them in a second that would never happen for whatever reason. Everybody would get all excited, in the workshop and then go back to their jobs. And for whatever reason, nothing would ever happen. We did one for Starbucks. We would do these corporate retreats for their design department every year with this fantastic friend of mine, Stanley Hainsworth. He would be a good podcast guest.
Thanks.
Um, he was design director at Nike, Lego, and Starbucks. Now he has his own firm called Tether. And the challenge statement that we were working on is how do you eliminate paper cups at Starbucks? And it was like, well, that's a good challenge. And we found out that they make a ton of money on the Starbucks card. So you load it up and then you
Mhm.
use that to pay for your coffee. Well, they've got your money. When you load it up,
Yeah.
I don't think they can spend it, but they can invest it. And so that's a huge profit center. They told me, I don't know if this is true, they make more there than they do on coffee. And so the idea
Wow.
that we came up with was to have Starbucks mugs, which they already have, but the chip is in the mug, not on a card. So you're much more likely to bring your mug because your money is on your mug.
Hmm.
And the technology was there to
yeah.
try it, do a small bet, do a test in a market. And I think because Stanley left shortly thereafter, the whole thing got wrapped around the axle. But that happens so often, where there's the appetite to come up with something new, and then the forces of business as usual,
Yeah.
conspire.
But how do you stay positive in
Yeah,
that? Because I can totally relate to that. I mean, it happens so often. Not
mhm,
and they maybe they'll lose appetite, but also because people leave. There's a new CEO, there's a new something. So, they're reorganizing. There's always so many, reasons why not to do something.
Yeah.
How do you keep sort of positive in that sense? Because I know a lot of people working in, like in consultancy and in design who are like, I'd rather work for smaller companies, who can really move.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's one. I've kind of stopped working completely with large organizations. I was in a workshop in New York a few years ago, and it was a company that was using big data for commercial real estate or something. And I was sitting there, and again, like this is the second time this has happened to me in New York, is like I can't will myself to give a shit about this. It's just
I'm trying
so,
really hard, but I cannot.
yeah, like I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So I work mostly with organizations that are really focused on change. One in Los Angeles, I'm on the board called Pando Populous that works on sustainability. And so they understand the value of like thinking wrong about problems. And
Mhm.
I work a lot with students, where I feel like I can influence the way they think about design and what they want to work on. So I've kind of shifted away from, hitting my head against the wall with large organizations.
Right. So your
Yeah.
advice is just don't do it anymore. That's the that's the way to stay positive. Just
Oh, I
don't
don't know.
don't go
Just
there
pick
anymore.
pick and choose carefully, I'd say.
Well, it's fascinating. It's really interesting, and it's a question that's on my mind. I just today actually someone asked me, "What is your biggest challenge as a design facilitator and a designer?" And I was like, biggest challenge, and I to me my biggest challenge is that I get kind of some, and less now, but it happened quite often, and I'm still prone to this. That I have alarm bells in my head going like, oh, I don't know, really, is this gonna? But it's a cool company, and the people are nice, and there's this project, and they asked me to do the project, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I know this is not gonna work, is it? And I still, and then I don't say no on time, and I'm already kind of sucked into this project, and then all of a sudden I feel like, oh no, this is never going to happen. This is just going to be a couple of workshops, and they're never going to do anything with the outcome because they are fighting, or there's something going on
Mhm.
internally that I didn't find out on time. And so it is sort of this saying no on time. I think learning, and I think that's also experience probably, that you will create sort of this antenna where you go, no, this is, I already
Mhm.
feel that this is not my place. I'm not
Yeah.
going into
How
this.
has, yeah, and how has intuition then played a role in your, excuse me, and as your practice as a designer?
You're asking me?
Yeah, yeah,
You're the guest. So
Um,
yeah.
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 Does it play a role? Because that's also
Intuition.
viable. Yeah, because I think that's kind
Yeah.
of what you're talking about a bit, right, Arna?
Yeah, I call alarm bells, but it can also be, it can be sort of a feeling that you go,
Yeah.
that's intuition. Yeah, you go like, hmm, there's a certain, and you can't put your finger at. Sometimes right? Like, okay, this is really not my
Just
place. But this is going to be too complex, or just I don't know, something that you
Yeah.
feel this is not the right. So that's intuition. Yeah.
I think it's age and experience. When I was younger, I'm sure this is true of most people, I was just so ambitious and optimistic. I've never turned down a project that
Right.
came my way. Um, as you get older, you see the warning signs, that
Hmm. Yeah.
and you may not be as hungry anyway,
Mhm.
you have a
Yeah,
little bit of a cushion, it's easier to turn stuff down.
that's true too. But in a way, is it wouldn't it be, I mean, if you wanted to have a generation of designers, wrong thinkers, people who kind of really can make an impact, wouldn't you like them to have sort of the ability to see the warning signs even when they're younger, when they, because I think putting your energy into the wrong
Hmm.
workshops, wrong projects, wrong clients, um, it's a waste of energy and time. I mean, I remember also listening to you at one point. I think it was at the time that we were doing a project for Coca-Cola. And I think you said something like, I would never work for Coca-Cola. I was like, hmm. I didn't even know I had a choice. It's Coca-Cola. Well, who says no to Coca-Cola? I mean, how? Because it built my resume. I want to be cool. I want to be, other clients will like me to do that. And so that really made me think as well. Talk about thinking wrong. I was like, can you make that decision? Can you? I mean, I won't work for tobacco industry. I don't want to work for the weapons industry. But then someone said, Arnie, you're working for Philips, right? And they
Hmm.
work for yeah, I know they do healthcare too, but they work for the weapons industry too. So, I'm like, how do I make those decisions? But I think we don't teach young people sort of to kind of hear those those alarm bells or feel those, or that you can make that choice and how, and that you can make that. I don't know. Is that a question? I'm not sure if it's a question or more a statement.
Well, it's making me think of the program that I teach in is very avant-garde, and it's not like your traditional design programs, but the students can kind of choose their own courses. And one of the focus tracks they could choose was circular and social design. And so, of course, it attracted the students who are thinking about these things and are thinking about the ethical or the moral implications of the choices that they're making. And so it was really fascinating to have conversations with them because they're also so overwhelmed, right? Oh, cool, I get to work for a healthcare company. Oh, wait, they're actually connected to this other industry, or, because everything is so complex and complicated,
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
they were just feeling so overwhelmed. And they're like, what hope is there? And I'm, trying my best to like, oh,
Hmm.
it's okay, you can do it. But yeah, what hope do you, or what advice would you give to people out there who are feeling like, okay, I want to be able to make these choices, or I want to, yeah, what
Yeah, I want to do the
advice,
right
or
thing. I
yeah,
want
how
to
do
do.
what would you say to a class of students who are feeling this way?
Yeah. It's I can say things, the reality of, paying back your student loans or, paying for your apartment. There are these realities of life, that you have to calculate. Um, I talk about it in several ways. One is, like if you're looking at a clock at the second hand, there's a second. That's your life. Like it's ticking, right? It's finite, and so what makes you happy? What makes you get up in the morning, and how can it's like a design problem. How can I how do I get there and do that, given the time I've got to do it, and um, sort of treating your life like a design problem. Um, I think to me, I constantly go back to that Steve Jobs thing where all of this, everything, politics, the structures we have placed, laws, like human existence is invented, you know. Um,
Mhm.
all of this stuff we think is important, you know, isn't really in the greater scheme of things. So when I think that way, I think these things that you're supposed to do, you're supposed to make this much money and have this car, this house, or whatever. It really doesn't matter, and so what I try to do is alleviate some of that pressure to do these expected things that then might free you up to construct a life that is better in alignment, with
Mm.
your values. I was flying into LA a while ago, and as you're coming into LAX, Los Angeles just it goes forever. Like it, maybe
Mhm.
Mexico City might be like that too. One community goes into the next, and it looks like this giant scab on the earth. And something about seeing it from that perspective made me realize, how destructive humans are on the planet. When you're in it and you're going to lunch with your friends or whatever, you're not really aware of it, but something about looking down from the plane. And so I think about that all the time, in terms of what I select to do or not do. How much damage am I doing? Including flying on the plane. That's certainly part of it. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
so
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a hard, everybody's different
Yeah.
answering that, what they're willing
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah,
you,
but I think the parallel kind of approach of, you need to, again, right, you have a student loan, you have to, maybe you have a family, you have kids, you have to, but having sort of this sense of, listen, you're on this planet, just for a short while. What would you like to do? What kind of life would you like to have? How would you like to feel? What was the, and then if you have this kind of, sometimes you need to do something to kind of just survive. But if you have this parallel strategy of like building something on the side that then maybe later can take over, something that really does make you feel better, that actually does. And I think that's if you do that consciously, and I don't really think, I was talking to this guy the other day where and he talked, every, I don't know, well, in most of his anecdotes, he started with, well, you only live for a short while, and while I'm here on this planet. And I was like, wait, hang on, you know, are you ill or something? Is something going on? He said, no, 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 I'm just really conscious of that. And
Mm.
I thought I never hear someone talk about that. And he was in the podcast the other day. So he talked about his end of life continuously, although he wasn't ill or wasn't sick. He was very young even. But this
Mhm.
idea of being very conscious of this is my life. I can now decide what I want to do. I can build it. It's not perfect, but being conscious of it. We don't teach people in general, the kids also not, because we want to kind of steer away from that mortality. We're
Mhm.
like, we don't want to think about it. We push it away. And I know, Morgan, this is sort of,
My
now
special interest,
you're a
yes.
special interest, death and
Death,
destruction, as
mortality,
Americans.
yeah. Endings, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, but right. So, I mean, because you're that, well, right, Morgan?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Have you thought about your like your legacy, I guess, which is maybe a morbid question, but as someone who's thinking about the impact they have on things, someone with a Wikipedia page, I mean,
yeah, I don't.
Yeah, already, yeah, that's one thing you have. You leave a Wikipedia page. Yeah.
I don't really think about that, but what I do think about is the impact on some of the young people that have been through my Project M program or that I've
Mhm.
taught over the years. I was just with several of them. We're doing a climate workshop in New Cayama, California, in Santa Barbara County, and a bunch of the former Project M people came. And
Cool.
it's just so inspiring to see how their careers have developed, and the kinds of things they're doing. And in particular, specifically, there's one guy, Ben Barry, who is in my program in Alabama, 2007, I think. And he then went to Facebook. And I said, "What are you doing at Facebook?" This is early, like 2008. And I go, "That's career suicide. Like, why would you do that?" He ended up not listening to me, and now he's independently wealthy and just fine. But when he was at Facebook, he and a couple other Project M alumni started this thing called the Analog Research Laboratory. And they just started doing stuff. Nobody gave them permission. They started silk screening posters and putting them up, like, move fast and break things. They had a think wrong poster. And eventually, the Zuckerberg and everyone liked what they were doing because it was making physical what was otherwise kind of a digital kind of
Mhm.
product. and part of their culture. And so they gave them more space and then built a new building and a big, analog research laboratory space. And um, what I love about that story is that nobody told them they could do that,
Mm.
and they just did it. And then over time, it grew and grew and grew and became established there. A bunch of articles, Wired Magazine did an article about it. And this is something I do tell students that if you're in a job you may not love, just start doing projects. Arnie, this is kind of what you said. Just pick something to do in your community.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of things. And don't have a client. Just tell them you're going to do something for
Yeah.
them that's going to be worthwhile, and do it, and then kind of build from there. So I love that. I love inspiring people to kind of resist, the quagmire of the status quo and start making something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's but it again, it's something that you need to kind of you talked about giving permission. That is what you do, right? You give people permission. So it's okay. Just go pick something up and run with it. Don't ask, don't wait, just do it because that will first of all, people we'll look at that as so inspirational because, proactive
Mhm.
people, that's so, I mean, you'll find a better job just because you're doing that, because that's what companies want too. They want those
Yeah.
proactive people. They don't want people to wait, and tell them before they were, and there's waiting for or them to be told what to do. They want people to kind of pick up stuff and go for it. Um, and I think that is such an important thing that I don't think we teach kids enough. Maybe at your
Mhm.
school, Morgan, I don't know, but
We
my
try,
experience,
but it's really hard to teach that. Yeah.
isn't
Mm.
it?
Yeah.
Because they're already kind of programmed, right? Because we talk about the neural pathways. They're already
They come
kind
in and
of,
they want the checklist that you were talking about. And we say there is no checklist and they don't
you're
know
like,
what to do.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? So um, think Nando.
Think, yeah, like tornado. Yeah.
So I was looking at the website because I think it's a new website. and it
Hmm.
and it was like, whoa, a lot of pink and really cool. Kate, so I think you are kind of embracing AI, and because it's so early for a lot of people. I mean, I know AI has been, but having it in the public domain and awareness of it, that is wow, what it can do as a as someone, as a designer, as a creative, as a wrong thinker. What is your take on AI and how are you? Because I see that you're embracing it and using it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. What are
Yeah.
you doing with it?
So the path to that, I'll start at the beginning. We did this
Yeah,
card deck, this
I have
Think
it.
Native
Yeah.
deck,
Mhm.
which helps, break the neural pathways, but it's still something you have to have one of those or buy it, and then are you going to actually use it in problem solving? And so we said, well, let's kind of morph this over to a digital application. And so at the beginning, we were just trying to take the Think NATO process into the digital environment. And it was super boring. Like it would work if you're heavily facilitating it,
Mhm.
but otherwise nobody would ever do it. And so then, AI was start, ChatGPT was coming out. And we thought, well, could we make AI think wrong? Like, AI is trying
Mm.
to come up with like the right answers to questions and prompts. Could we use it as a tool to think wrong in a fun way? So it was all designed to be something that was actually like enjoyable to use, wasn't a big task. Because we think of these things as creative conditioning. So just like that physical conditioning, going for a run or going to the gym are worthwhile, even though you might not want to do it. We believe the same thing is true with your brain, that, doing exercises and conditioning it. But most people don't even know that that's a thing or want to do it. So that was kind of the motivation for this. It's just something we're trying, seeing if people like it, if they find it has value. It's really only useful to push a challenge somewhere that you would never have gone before. And then you can take parts from that and build on it. It's not really giving you the answer to anything. I think with AI, the genie's out of the bottle, like it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pandora's box.
Yeah, totally. And it's so the same guy that was at Facebook I mentioned, he worked at OpenAI for several years. He doesn't anymore because he doesn't really like where they're going. But when he was there, it was funded by Elon Musk, who was terrified of the power of AI. And so he's trying to, OpenAI was formed to keep it on the rails and it open sourced. And so nobody could really use it for evil purposes. And he said there's an arms race going on between the US, China, India, and Russia to use AI for military purposes.
Yeah.
And that's going on. So anyway, there was a lot of concern. And when he was there, when I would talk to the scientists, I did a project with them. None of the scientists, this is a few years ago, could imagine a positive outcome to
Yeah.
AI. And so I was just with Ben recently for this workshop, and he said, in his opinion, we can probably survive climate change as humans, but AI maybe not.
I was
Oh
just
gosh.
reading this article. I mean, I think it was in a New Yorker, about how they did research and scientists looked at AI and different platforms, and they found that it cheated, even though you asked it not to cheat, and it manipulated, even if you asked it not to do so, it still did it. And they were really worried about this because, like, we ask it to be honest and straightforward and then
Yeah.
play the game with it, but it still wanted to win the game, and it cheated. What? So wait a minute. So you don't control it? People are, and this is, by the way, I think a sentence that I've read the most by you probably on social media. Humans are stupid.
Idiots, I
Oh,
say.
humans are idiots. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Humans are idiots is your is your
Is that
tagline, I think.
the full quote?
I think that's the tag. That's
It,
the full. Yeah, humans are
it's
idiots.
humans equal idiots.
Yeah, exactly.
And this comes from, I mean, the AI thing is a perfect example where we have the capacity, the scientific capacity to develop things like AI, but we really don't have the wisdom to understand the impact of that. And, you could see it with, social media. In the early days of Facebook, they had no idea, the impact that it would have on young
No
girls,
way. Yeah.
presidential election, and how it could be manipulated. And, that. So that's just one example. But the thing about humans that's so perplexing is we do have the capacity for great knowledge and technology and art, music, literature, film, but as a group, we behave like idiots. And I think climate is a great example of that, where it's going to be so difficult to get us to acknowledge the issue and address it on a global scale, or that like prejudice still exists, that we use skin pigmentation to
Yeah,
separate people. We're like,
Mhm.
really? We're still
yeah,
doing that?
yeah.
Really?
It's a thing. Yeah.
I think what the issue is, humans have these basic survival mechanisms that were once useful. like tribalism. It was probably once advantageous to gather in groups, and you could identify those groups by, some characteristics. Um, Over the past, I'll say 100 years, our conditions have so radically changed, but as humans, we can't evolve fast enough. So we still have these reptilian brains,
Yeah.
but we're also dealing with these huge existential issues at the same time. There was a guy named Bill Joy. He's still around. He was one of the founders of Sun Microsystems, invented Java, really brilliant, genius guy. And he did the cover story for Wired magazine years ago, and it was called Why the Future Doesn't Need Us. And it was about the dangers of technology. And I saw him give a talk, and he had this graph with this hockey stick exponential curve, which represented Moore's law. The speed of processing increases exponentially, which gives us this powerful computer in our pockets.
Mm-hmm.
And he had another line he said was human evolution, and that was like flatlined as far as you could see both directions. And he
Wow.
circled that space in between this and that, and he called it the chasm of cognitive dissonance, that
Mm.
we as humans, we just cannot deal with this new environment that we're living in. Um, and he was calling for a Hippocratic oath for technologists that, like in medicine, you
Mm-hmm.
can't, you, everything is in service of a betterment for humans. Whereas technology, if we can do it and it'll make money, you'll do it.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's money and power. And yeah, so it's always an arms race. It's going to be an
Yeah,
arms race. It will be.
right.
And that obviously, I mean, that led to the atomic bomb. That led
Yeah.
to, I mean, so we are very stupid. And
But I
yeah,
think it's, that those two things, the climate and the AI, I think are unprecedented. Like most humans on the planet have no idea like how fast both of those things are accelerating right now.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
And
crazy.
it's stuff we've never had to deal with, which gets me back to the whole thinking wrong, keep creative people to come up with new ideas and address, some of these challenges, I think is essential. It's not just an elective.
Yeah, agreed. Which
Yeah.
is something that um I don't know, someone someone needs to start organizing that. I think
Yeah.
yeah, it's such a I don't know, because it's also so exciting. Not the climate, by the way, but climate change, that's not very exciting. That's just like scary, because that's like, I mean, you can see it every day. Every day we watch the news, by the way, there's a flood somewhere.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
With my kids, so I watch the news with my kids, and then there's a flood somewhere, and then we go, what do we say? Climate change. Every
Mhm.
day there is something that points to, hey, something's changing. Hello.
Yeah.
With AI, there's a sense of excitement as well. There's a sense of because like you said, it is serendipity machine. You can
Mm-hmm.
ask it to come up with weird solutions and just keep going. And every time you say, give me 10 more options, it says, absolutely, I will. Glad to. It's happy, yay. And it's such a great, and Mid Journey, it creates these images. It's amazing. You go like, wow, you can come up with these crazy things that are to me as a creative, it's addictive, really. You go, wow, this
Mhm.
is so cool. I can whatever I can imagine, I can just create, like, in a second, really. It's an
Yeah.
amazing thing. But at the same time, again, we go back to the alarm bells. You go like, what's the consequence of all of this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And so I know, when you think about the future, I mean, we talked about the future, obviously, but what do you think for your future? Is AI going to be more important, or what are you going to be doing yourself? Just you as a
Yeah.
John.
Well, Yeah, I vacillate between, giving a shit about all of
Yeah,
this,
yeah, exactly. Well,
wanting to
that's
ignore it and go on a bike ride. So
exactly.
it's a
Well, you have,
daily,
don't you have to? I mean, don't you have to? Otherwise, you go crazy. If you, I mean, if you have to have that, this ability to just not give a shit,
yeah,
because otherwise, it's going to kind of, I think
Mhm.
too
it's going to
much.
be, yeah, too
Yeah,
much, and it blocks you.
depressing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's it. That's the
I
future.
don't think
Go on a
AI,
bike ride.
yeah, I think I will later today. Um, Yeah, I'm not that interested in AI. We're trying this thing
Mhm.
with Think NATO, but that's not really my future. I think working more with young people
Right.
um, of all ages is very satisfying to me. Um, Travel. My partner Beth and we're trying to find the best place in the world to live. So we've been traveling a lot. We were in Finland, where my grandparents are from, which is quite interesting. Um, we were in Switzerland. We were in Spain recently, Mallorca. Um,
What are your
we love Amsterdam.
criteria?
What?
What are your criteria? Because Finland and Mallorca are a bit
We're all over the place. Sometimes it's weather and
Mhm.
scenery, and other times it's, basic quality of life and
Yeah.
enlightened, government.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Finland
I,
is the happiest country in the world.
yeah,
So,
when we were there, we asked everybody why, and they would roll their eyes. Yeah, but they all answered the same thing, that because of the social system, everybody feels supported, in education and healthcare and childcare. And so basic things, they'd have no
Mhm.
homeless because they have a policy to get people in homes when they're struggling. It's spotless. There's no trash anywhere. Um, so it's those kind of basic things that gave people a base to work from.
Yeah.
It's also relatively homogenous, which there was more diversity than we expected, but still, it's easier to work with a homogenous population to get everybody on board with the same things.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
love Amsterdam. I think it's such an interesting melting pot, but also so creative. I
mhm.
think you sort of denied the value of the school system, but I think with Dutch flying especially,
Sorry.
it's just breaking rules.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That
And
is true. No sense of hierarchy in business, for instance. So we're
Mhm.
very used to just speaking up, and
Yeah.
everybody has a say. And so there's something about that. There's something
yeah,
about, your opinion counts, and that can
right.
be annoying. It's like, shut
How
up.
many political parties are there?
How many exactly? Like 26 or so,
There's
or
like
more?
26 political parties, and they'll all put billboards all over the city
Yes.
trying to convince you to give them your vote, obviously.
Yeah,
Uh,
which is crazy. So you can be
yeah.
a tiny political party and still be the biggest one because there are 26 of them. And so the votes are divided between all of those. But it also means that you always have to compromise. You can't be a one party government.
But
It's
what's the
impossible.
phrase? With a good compromise, everyone is equally unhappy.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's a Dutch phrase. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
should be.
yeah.
That sounds like a Dutch phrase. Yeah, exactly. We're all like, yeah. Oh, but yeah, true. Okay. Amsterdam, move to Amsterdam.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Well,
weather is getting better because of global warming.
just don't flood.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
biggest worry, I think.
we
Yeah.
have a couple of years. We have a couple
Yeah,
of years. Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Yeah, it disappears. Yeah. All
My
right.
house is below sea level, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I do think that of all the places to live, I think the Netherlands, and I live in Haarlem, the original Haarlem, in the next to the beach and between Amsterdam and the beach. I think we think about moving every now and then, and we go like, where? This is such a amazing place. It's
hmm,
safe, like Finland. There's safety nets. It's not exactly like Finland, but there are safety nets.
yeah,
You don't have to really worry about things like becoming homeless and that kind of stuff. You don't need 2 jobs or 3 jobs at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important. But at the same time, it's also I think the Dutch. I mean, it's a cliche, but there is a sort of sense of honesty there. People will kind of say what they feel more than other countries. So if I even go to Belgium, which is, they even speak the same language, part of it, they will be so much more indirect. So about what they think and feel. So they always and they think we're very rude. But I kind of am, so because it's kind of nice. At least
Yeah.
So come to Amsterdam. That'd be nice.
Okay.
Would be very good
We'll
to come and visit or come and live. The houses are, you can't afford them anymore. By the way, that's a side note. Same here. Yeah, the value of houses went up tremendously. But I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.